In this episode of Life Stories of Extraordinary People, I'm talking to Anthony Stazicker. Anthony, better known as Staz, served 13 years in a distinguished and highly decorated military career in the UK's Special Forces, with the last 3 as a highly experienced, multi-skilled chief sniper instructor and demolitions expert. Staz has been awarded the Conspicuous Gallantry Cross for combat actions conducted in Afghanistan in 2013. Clearly, Staz will have an incredible experience and understanding of self-discipline and mindset. So it'll be fascinating to explore and learn what he does to maintain his own mental and physical health. I'm keen to see how relevant his military training, positive mindset, and his ability to lead has influenced his business experience. He's the founder of a true mission-led business called Through Dark, which is growing fast, and I want to learn more about it and the inspiration behind it. I'm really looking forward to talking to Staz. Staz, welcome.
Thanks for having me in.
Tell me, who is Anthony Stazicker?
Who am I? I'm still discovering that. I'm still trying to find that out. But the short and condensed version, I'm 39 years old. I was born in Wigan, moved to Nottingham when I was a kid and joined the military. So I'm a former Special Forces operator. That's probably what I'm known for, I guess. And I've since leaving the military in 2018, I started a high performance outdoor clothing brand and co-founded that with my partner Louis.
Yeah, awesome. Take me back to when you were growing up. What did a young Staz want to do when you were going through your teens and looking at a career?
Oh God, what did young Staz want to do? Young Staz probably wanted to do everything as fast as possible. I guess I got introduced to sport, in particular rugby to begin with, because I was obviously born in Wigan.
Rugby league.
Rugby league, the proper game. And then I moved, my parents divorced around about the age 7. I relocated to Nottingham or Mansfield with my older brother, and all the goalposts had changed. You know, it was now football. So very quickly had to turn my hand to not only a new school, new environment, new people, but to a new sport as well. And that was football for me. So I very quickly became attached to the game and passionate.
Okay, cool. And how far did you go with that pursuit of football?
Not as far as I wanted to. So my mum suddenly passed away when I was aged 11. And I guess, you know, it was a brain hemorrhage, it was overnight. Thankfully I was away with my brother, visiting my dad at the time up in Wigan. But you know, one moment she's there, the next moment she wasn't. So when I was 11, that was obviously quite a big turning point in my life. So I guess to answer your question, why football and why that passion and why that purpose, for me it really lit a fire within my belly. And for me it was a way of, not just a distraction, but for me a way to align myself and my purpose and my vision and my goal towards something that I could strive towards, you know, valiantly, and almost ignore what was happening at that time or that, in my life as a young kid.
Yeah, it sounds like you've always been really motivated and driven, and potentially goal setting as well. Am I right in saying that, or did that come as you started to almost achieve and make things happen and then build that kind of confidence?
I think yes, but I also think because what had happened at such a young age, you know, with losing my mum, I think I felt a lot of anger, you know, towards the world. Why me? You know, this isn't fair. Yeah. You know, no kid should lose their parents at that sort of age. But I didn't have anywhere to turn that anger and angst towards, and I guess that was manifesting in different ways in so much as school and work and attitude. But I found my release and my passion through sport and through football, and very quickly I became quite good at football. So at a young age I was representing the school, I was captain, I was then playing for the Nottinghamshire for county team as well, that level. Then I was picked up by a professional team, you know, Mansfield. I started
a long way.
Yeah, so I started playing through that sort of system, and then I went to a more professional football teams. I was playing for Fulham, you know, quite high-end sort of teams at the time. Started representing England's schoolboys, and then unfortunately I was involved in an accident on a motocross bike, which dislocated my knee. I was rehabilitated very quickly. The sort of first game back, my knee went again, and I knew at that moment in time that you know, the dream was kind of the sand going through the fingers. I knew, and it was frustrating at kind of that age, 16, 17, right on sort of picking up what was then a YTS, a scholarship apprenticeship at the time, was kind of fizzling out or moving away from me. So from there I had to readjust, went to college and wanted to do a BTEC National Diploma in Sports Science, but also carried on with the rehab football. I then joined the college football team. I then started playing, I got back into the swing of things, and then I was representing the British colleges, so the whole of the colleges in Britain, playing for them, and then I got offered a scholarship to go over to the United States of America, which didn't work out.
Frustrating. There's a lot of frustration there.
Very frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, in building up to that. So where did you go from there?
What's out there now in the big wide world, which I'd never really considered before. You know, I started then looking into different options in terms of work. I went to work in a local gym, so I became a personal trainer and a local council estate, you know, ran gym for a couple of years. And at that point, it was kind of, I still had that fire in my belly. You know, I was still very interested in playing football. I was playing for a local team, being paid, but not as a semi-professional. Very interested in still keeping myself physically active and fit. Obviously, part of the job, being an instructor. And then I started looking at, you know, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? And what do I need to do to achieve the things that I'm thinking about? And that's when I really started thinking about the military, which at the time was not forced upon from anybody in my family. Nobody in my family had been in the military before. So it was something that I started looking into through books. I started reading, you know, you spend all that time at school, not interested, books, not bothered. And then you sort of reach an age, I think, where you find out what interests you, and what books interest you.
And then you go to learn.
It's like purposeful practice, you know, you'll do the things that you want to do. You'll read the books that you want to read when you do come of age and you're happy to do so. So I started reading Andy McNab. So First Man In was probably one of the first proper books that I read, and a lot of autobiographies, and you know, and some of his fictional stuff as well. And it got me really interested. That's correct. Yeah.
I remember reading that as a young,
so it really started sparking my interest in the military and the sort of special forces and that mystery and who these people were, and you know, and I think it kind of fitted quite well in terms of me and my personality and who I thought I could be.
Yeah.
So I started looking into joining the military, and that was the Royal Marines.
Yeah, and that's not easy. I mean, you know, you must have known, you're looking into that, this is a massive challenge. You obviously weren't intimidated, you just took it full on. It's not an easy challenge, but I tell you what hooked me was the Royal Marines advert at the time, and I don't know if you can remember it. It was these guys, cool guys, all cam creamed up, weapons, they're moving through, you know, the silent, and then they get beasted, and then they show people going under the sheep dip, and it was like, oh my god, it was like, what is that? That looks horrific. Where do I sign up? Yeah. But the tagline was 99.9% need not apply. Apparently, it was their worst ever commercial because it just made people go, I'm not strong enough to do that. Like, I don't want that. But what it did do is it did appeal to probably the crazy, absolute
0.1% of people. Me going, I'll have some of that. Where do I sign? That sounds incredible. So off I went down to the local Armed Forces career office in Nottingham. And for me, I'd always wanted to, if I was going to do something, I want to be the best at what I do. You know, whatever I was doing. And that's become quite evident as I've kind of moved through life. And yeah, I walked in there, there's this big burly kind of Royal Marine commando in there, you know, he's got his green beret on, his belt, you know, his flashes, Royal Marine commando, and, you know, he has that kind of sense about him, that kind of feeling of pride about him, very confident individual. I go in, I sort of say, look, I'm interested in joining the military, you know, probably naively at the time. So yeah, I want to do Andy McNab, SAS. Slow down, kid, slow down, sit down. So we spoke about what those options would be. Clearly he was biased towards the Marines, but for me, I'd read enough to know who the Marines were, what that entailed, and how difficult of an undertaking that was. And probably alongside that, it's probably worth giving the parachute regiment a little nod as well, and a little shout out as well, because for me, they're probably the two best infantry units in the UK. So yeah, it's 32 weeks basic, inverted commas, training, and at the end of that 32 weeks you are then awarded the coveted Green Beret.
And obviously you went on to have a career there where you ended up getting the Gallantry Cross.
Yeah, so I had an eventful career and a decorated career, to your point. So I spent 3 years. In fact, just before that, I'd kind of gone through the military or the Marines training, and I joined the 32 weeks. Clearly, it's a very physically and mentally intense course. A lot of people get injured; they succumb to injury, which is obviously no fault of their own. But the attrition rate is pretty high. I started on week 1, I finished at week 32, so they call that an original. If you say there's 50 people in your troop, you start, I sound like I'm boasting now, I'm not. I'm not trying to sort of say, look how good I am.
It's factual, right?
I'm trying to give context to kind of how hard and what the attrition rate was in terms of other people. I think there was only 6 originals from our 50, 60 people that joined, that went through day 1, 32. I think, and also to give more context, I think I found my calling. I was used to being around sport, being around teams and having that sense of belonging to something bigger and better than myself, and adding and playing an important role for the greater good. So I liked that. Also still that fire in my belly, that willingness to push myself. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I finished at the end of the 32 weeks. I was actually awarded the King's Badgeman, so the sort of top recruit, and the physical training medal as well for being this kind of fittest guy in the troop. But again, I think I owed a lot of that to my sporting background from football. That kind of transferred very well into the military world. Yeah. I then spent 3 years in the Royal Marines. So my 3 years, I go on an operational tour out to Kabul, Afghanistan. That was my first kind of eye-opening tour.
Sure.
You're a boy in a man's world. I was 21, 22 at the time. Quick, steep learning curve. And then I moved to a different unit. I then say, right, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I look into the hardest infantry course within the Royal Marines, or within the British military, and that's the sniper course. So that's a highly regarded, well-regarded sort of course that you can do within the Marines. It tests you, physically, mentally, shooting, all the kind of basic soldiering infantry skills to a very high standard. They're kind of another level within the military that guys look towards. Oh, is this one of the snipers or the recce guys, that kind of stuff. It's kind of like another level up. So I went on the sniper course, completed that. And then I remember sitting there in the office at the end of the sniper course. I didn't get on particularly well with the chief instructor. It wasn't just myself. It was, he's just a difficult man to get on with. And I remember sitting down with him and saying to me, Staz, where do you want to go now? What unit do you want to go to? What sniper billet? And I was like, my response to him, was, I want to go on Special Forces selection. And he nearly spat his tea out and was kind of like, good luck with that. And I thought, wow. That just
makes you want it more.
Shit, yeah. That guy it was like pouring gasoline onto the petrol that was already burning within me. So I stand up, leave, thank you very much. Off I go, and then I enroll myself onto the UK Special Forces selection course, which is a joint Special Forces selection course. So for most people that don't know about Special Forces, it's kind of all under one umbrella now. It's SAS, SBS, so Special Air Service, Special Boat Service, you get the Reconnaissance Regiment, all kind of encompassing, but the SAS and the SBS go and do their combined kind of selection process, and that's a hard undertaking as well. So you're kind of 6 months into a selection process before joining your respective units.
And I'm assuming you flew through that.
I did actually. I did, and the same thing happens again. So now there's probably on my course 250, 260 people that turn up on day 1, in the Welsh Mountains to start the 4-week hills phase. Yeah. And these are current, competent, hardened individuals.
That's a massively powerful group, right?
It's a powerful group, but it's a volunteered group as well. I.e., previously to that selection, you had to be put forward or had to express interest and then have to be almost signed off.
So vetted.
Like you're vetted, by your unit. Right. But now you can, as long as you pass the pre-course, the kind of pre-selection course to go in to show that you're fit enough physically and robust enough, you can do the basics well, navigate, and et cetera, then you're loaded on. There's 250, 260 guys here, and it might be different now, but the Royal Marines at the time made up 60% of UK Special Forces. That sort of shows the calibre of the Royal Marines. The rest were made up of parachute regiment guys and a very small percentage of the other kind of units, engineers, etc., etc. So, you've got some vast levels of experience there. Physically fit and mentally robust individuals. Some that had done operational tours as well. Afghanistan was kind of very prevalent at the time, that everybody had kind of been out there, or most people had been out and done at least one or two tours, had seen sort of combat action. So we start the course and off we go. But back to your point, I did actually finish. I'm going to condense, 6 months worth of extremely physically, mentally exhausting exhilarating moments of that selection of my life at that time into probably a 30-second dialogue. It was horrific, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. There were moments where I was at my lowest, the kind of ebb. If it was a piece of string, it would be one thread, just about, you know, some weight hanging, and you think it's going to go, but you don't, and it didn't, you know. And there's an element of lady luck involved, but I don't believe in luck so much. But there is. You need the rub of the green. Yeah. There are physically fit and very competent people on that course that don't make it for different reasons, and that's just simply rolling an ankle, snapping a leg, you know, something like that.
Out of their control. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's difficult, you know. And but there's not one person that goes through selection that does not have an injury of some, you know, one form or another. So we do the hills, you go to the jungle, that's stinking, and then you go resistance to interrogation phase. You've probably seen that sort of stuff, hood over, screamy baby noises, resistance to interrogation and bits and pieces, and then you do the weapons and tactics phase at the end. If you're successful at the end of that, then you get moved to your respective unit, you get the belt, the beret, welcome, snakes and ladders, life's a game of snakes and ladders.
Yeah, big time.
You're up. You've got
to keep climbing there, right? You've just got to keep pushing. Because that's what comes across, the way you're articulating this, and thank you, it's fascinating for me. Especially the kid that was running around with cap guns and watching Sean Connery's
spud guns. And,
a little bit probably different to the real thing, clearly. But it's cool. And I remember that advert. I didn't tell you that at the time, but I do remember the advert. And it made you think that looks so cool. But also I remember thinking those guys are just hardcore, which probably says something about me thinking, well, I didn't sign up. But in terms of your mindset, in terms of your positive attitude, it feels like that's unwavering. Have you always been like that? Has there been a time when you've just thought, whatever it might be in training or indeed in combat, has there been a moment where you just thought, I can't handle this? And something, have you just always got an inner voice that says, keep going, Staz?
I've never had a moment where something has become so hard that I want to quit, that I thought, I'm going to quit. Don't get me wrong, there's been times when I've passed out from being physically exhausted.
Your body's given up on you before your mind.
Yeah. And for me, that's key. You know, you can break me physically, but you cannot break me mentally. And I've been to the furthest far reaches that most people will ever, you know, push themselves to physically and mentally, you know, bar high performance, high level athletes, and endurance athletes, et cetera, you know, and that's every kind of environment as well, cold, wet, hungry. And I think it's designed specifically for that purpose, you know, not just the Marines, but Special Forces selection. They're constantly layering, you know, the shit sandwich. It's lack of sleep, you know, terrible food, you know, and then pressure, environment pressure, and, you know, climate, everything is just layered, and then whack, you've got to perform, you know, and that's what they're looking for. And that's, I think for me, the selection process hasn't changed that much in years, because it's beautiful. It
works.
It works. It's a proven concept that works for those reasons. Because me right now, sat in here, a comfortable, albeit warm room, we're comfortable. We're having a sat down, relaxed conversation. For the most part, that's how most people navigate life. We're now living in a world that's so comfortable. For the most part, you know, our phones, technology, everything's designed to be easy for food, easy to travel, you know, easy to communicate. You know, I can find out information, but it's very difficult, I think, to be put into a real life stressful situation. That's when you see who people really are. And selection is designed so much in that sense that they're trying to see who the real Staz is. Who is he? I don't care who he is right now. Let's get him cold, wet, tired, hungry, and fill him with a complex task with others, and let's see how he reacts. Yeah. And I think that's interesting, because what the military did give me is a very unique perspective on life. I've seen the best of humanity, the worst of humanity. You know, I've been involved with that stuff and surrounded and immersed in that world for so long. But I'm so thankful for that perspective, you know, and as you do get a little bit older and a little bit, I'm not wise, or, you know, I'm still wet behind the ears. I'm 39 years old, but that life experience and that time, what it's afforded me with that 10 years of special forces, traveling the world, being involved with so much, you know, great times, not all bad, some really good times as well, but, and learning from some fantastic individuals as well, people that I was surrounded with, the team. You know, I've been so fortunate to be surrounded by a wealth of experience, you know, not just professionally but personally as well, learning from some of the best leaders, you know, you know, in my experience in the world. You know, these people are fantastic individuals.
You've had travelling experience. You've learned how to be part of a team. You've probably learned how you more about yourself than you ever could doing anything else. And you've come out the other side. And I think I say it like that because you must have been around colleagues and people that have come out with post-traumatic stress. You know, not sure what they're going to do next because that was their identity. Whereas I've had the privilege to come and see you in your offices down there where we both live. And through Dark, you know, it's such a mission-led business, and it's come from your own experiences, which I'd love you to elaborate on. And the fact that a lot of what you learned through the military and just all the journey before, this discipline and getting on with people and so on, is so relevant to business as well, right? So have you taken all of that through and found that that's been incredibly useful to be able to become ultimately an entrepreneur, right?
Wow, where do we start? I think, yes, but business is a different entity, a completely different mission, mindset and approach to the things that I'd done previously. Now, there are clearly some transferable skills from not just military, but special forces and experience gained that you can apply through business and life, and you can layer those in different areas. There's a lot of things that that I would do differently, or I would like to have done differently, but I think for the most part, I mean, I'm being kind of really minor there, nitpicking for the most part. Yeah. To your original point and to the question about identity, when you leave something like the Special Forces, you attach so much of your identity to who you are at that time. And it's an echo chamber. Everything is. You're in this bubble. You're Special Forces. I'm Staz. I'm a sergeant. I'm a sniper. I'm the chief sniper instructor, and I've done so many operational tours, and I've got a Conspicuous Gallantry cross, and I'm fucking great. Look at me, and yes, you are, and it's like professional sport. You know, you're in the team, and look how good we are. We've just won the title. Look, we're brilliant, 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 brilliant. Right, out you go. Don't need you anymore. Yeah. And it's whoa. You know. There's a lot to take in there. You know, you do attach so much of your identity to who you are and what you did before, and you have to go through that process. And some people deal with that differently. And I've seen it manifest in terrible ways through PTSD, through drink, through drugs, through gambling, through various means and methods of madness, you know. And the sliding scale, it's different, you know. And I'm not a clinical psychologist, but is mental health an issue? Yeah, absolutely. We know it is. We can see the statistics. The biggest killer men under 40 in the UK. It's frightening. It's frightening.
And by default, your whole career, and you can tell just by looking at you, you keep physically fit. I want to know what you do now out of the military, day to day, and also mentally. Did you still keep reading? Did you still keep searching for knowledge, and how do you find it?
So I'll touch on the physical aspect. Clearly, you have to keep physically fit within Special Forces. That's a non-negotiable. If you are not physically fit and you cannot do the job, you will be returned to your unit. You know, you're no use to anybody. It's the same as being a professional athlete. So you have a lot of self-induced pressure, but actual real life pressure, because people are depending on it. People's lives depend on it. If I'm not fit, or I fail to do something because I've not looked after my physical fitness and I'm letting somebody else down, that's on me, you know, and that's unfair. So I always kept that in check. Since leaving, I guess it's a way of life then. The more that you train, the more that it becomes a habit, a consistent habit built over time.
What works for you though? Do you go for runs? I mean,
it's different. So an average week for me is now Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which leans into the mental aspect as well. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then sort of weight, strength and conditioning, resistance training, and a run at least once a week as well, with a bit of a cold water therapy dip and bits and pieces in between. Yeah. So sometimes life gets in the way, but that's what I aim for. I want to touch quickly on the mental aspect as well in terms of physical. We've got the physical, the mental. You know, I don't meditate or anything, but Jiu-Jitsu gave me that sense of flow that I used to love and enjoy, and the visualization that I used a lot of times within the military and pre-military, which I didn't realize until now. You know, how I also internalize things, how I speak to myself. And I think it's important to know, you know, the conversations that you're having with yourself day to day, minute to minute,
Yeah.
are so important, you know, and they can't be overlooked. We know the brain wants to sort of, you know, be the bad person.
Yeah.
And you know, it's weird how it works. But I think recognizing that and being aware, for me, that's awareness. That's a sense of meditation, or whatever that is, about being too deep about that.
Yeah.
And I think if you can look after yourself first and foremost, it's the analogy, isn't it? You're on the plane, the mask come down, and you know, we're fathers.
Yeah.
You're going to look after your kids. It's like no. Sort yourself out first. Because if you can't sort yourself out, you cannot look into helping the younger people that are going to depend on you in about 2 to 3 seconds time. And that's true in life for me. That is, look after yourself physically, look after yourself mentally. Once you are as complete as you can be, and you're at peace with yourself mentally and physically, you can then add value to your family and to your children.
Yeah.
And you know, I've tried to learn that. Don't get me wrong, we slip up. I'm not the perfect person, and nor should we expect to be perfect.
No.
You know, we're not. And I think that's the beauty of life.
And it's distancing from that seeming selfish and self-indulgent, because
Yeah.
actually, if you can be the best person yourself, you are much more helpful to those around you and other people. Right?
What's important to me right now is being the best husband I can be to my wife, the best father that I can be to my kids, you know, and the best person I can be to myself as well. And then how do those things now help and transfer into business and to enjoying life?
I've learned loads from you. Like, there's lots more we could go off and find out about, but thank you so much for being so open and sharing about everything we've talked about.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.